Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar, How to Reduce Dependency on Third-Party Booking Sites. My name is Matt Baer. I am the founder of Q4Launch, and I'm excited that you guys are tuned in and along for the ride with us today. If this is your first time with us, I just want to say a special welcome to you. Glad that you are along. We have about 5,000 people following our webinar series at this point, and are really excited about that. We started this about 3 years ago. For the first invitations we sent out, I think we had like 30 people sign up for our first one, and had to buy a bunch of ads just to get that. And now to have 5,000 people following the series and having attended in the last two or so years is really exciting. We ran some data on that as well for a campaign, a VIP offer we sent out to webinar attendees last week, and then followed up on that this week. You might have seen that. But in doing that, realized about 50% of our webinar attendees on any given webinar are first-time attendees, which surprised me. That statistic shocked me a little bit, but I guess that's why the attendance keeps growing, because we get a lot of first-timers. So really, really appreciate you coming. If this is your first time with us, thanks for being here. Tell you a little bit about who we are and why we do these. Q4 Launch is a destination marketing company specializing in marketing some of the best destinations and lodging properties throughout the world, really focused in the continental U.S., or not continental U.S., I guess, entire U.S., and headquartered in Charleston, South Carolina. So a little bit about us. We've been doing this exclusively in the travel space for the last 3.5 years. We've been around as a company, as a marketing agency for the last 8. My background was in e-commerce marketing before coming to work and starting this company about 8 years ago. So that's a little bit about us. We work, again, with some of the best destinations, resorts, hotels, B&Bs, vacation rentals throughout the United States, as well as some great international properties, and love doing what we do. I have a great passion for travel, but also a great passion for helping people do a better job with their overall marketing. And that's what we're here to do today. One of our core values as a company is to share knowledge. And that's what this webinar series was set out to do, was to take a lot of the things we're learning from working on our customers, helping our customers, and share that knowledge with the marketplace, because we believe that if we all, as an independent lodging sector, do a better job of marketing ourselves, it will help the sector grow. And that's what we want to see, is growth for everyone in our sector, and everyone doing a better job marketing, because we believe it will grow everyone's pie. As the proverb says, a rising tide floats all boats, which we see that twice a day here in Charleston. So it's very, very applicable for us, and we're really excited you guys are along and taking advantage of this opportunity to learn from what we're seeing in the marketplace. And this has been a hot topic, the reducing dependency on third-party booking sites. We actually did this webinar for the first time earlier this year. Had overwhelming response, and have had a lot of requests to come present this at various conferences this year, and have had a great time doing that. Appreciate those invitations and love getting out to conferences and speaking when we get the opportunities. So thank you for those. I know many of those invitations have come from you and our audience here. And we appreciate that very much, and hope this topic is very helpful for you. So we're going to dive into this. We're going to tackle it. We're going to cover some things that are honestly old news at this point, but we're going to bring those back up because it's an important part of the overall picture of what we're looking at. So before we do that, before we dive in, a little bit of housekeeping as well. We will have time for question and answer at the end of our time today, so use the chat panel for Q&A. We'll jump in there and answer those questions at the end of our time, and we'll also be emailing the recording out. We always get tons of emails coming in after our webinar is over asking for the recording. We will get that out probably early next week. Since it's a Thursday webinar, we'll probably get that out the first next week. So look for that recording in your inbox so that you can take notes, follow along, relearn what you might not have fully captured in our presentation today, but do that. As we move throughout this presentation, we're actually going to kind of tell the story of one of our customers as well. We're going to tell their story because we believe it makes it more meaningful, makes it more memorable for you as you're trying to take this information and apply it, or look for ways to apply it in your own business. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So at the end of last year, December of last year and into this year, the breaking news was Expedia's acquisition of HomeAway. And we talked a lot about this and taught webinars about this and had a ton of questions coming in and spent a lot of time on this subject as a whole. And what we know is that the only constant is change. No matter where you look, but especially in our industry right now, the only constant is change. there have been a ton of acquisitions happening in the segment that we all live and breathe and work in, and it's been a very interesting time, a lot of consolidation at the top of the industry. We've seen acquisitions, and you do in industries throughout the years pretty consistently, but some major acquisitions from some major players, major travel brands like Expedia coming in and acquiring some of the more homegrown travel brands that have grown up inside of our industry. So that's an exciting thing because it means investment money is coming in. It means that institutional investors are seeing the future of our industry, that they're seeing the growth that they believe is going to happen here, which is good for all of us, right? There's growth and there's a big upside, and then a lot of very, very smart investors and very, very smart economists see the opportunity here, but it also creates challenges, and that it changes the landscape at which we all do business, and it needs to change the way we do business. And as we think about our third-party distribution strategy, that's an important part of that overall process as well, just making sure that you really have a distribution strategy for what you're working towards. So making sure you have that. I'll touch base on a couple of these bullets. We won't spend a ton of time on this slide as we did when we taught this earlier in the year. But the main point we want you to take away from this, and I did receive a memo that the bottom of the screen is being cut off. So I want to touch base on a couple of those bullets. They're some of the most important bullets at the bottom of the screen there. But that's a couple of things. One is that the online directories are trying to become online travel agents, right? So you have the OTAs, or online travel agents, like Expedia, and then you have what have been traditionally directories, like the HomeAways, the VRBOs, the bedandbreakfast.coms, there's tons and tons of them out there. The names go on, and they've traditionally been a directory. Well, what they're seeing is a huge opportunity, and we taught about this really, really deep in the webinar we did just on the topic of Expedia buying HomeAway and why they did and a lot of the other changes they're making. But the big opportunity that exists is to take a directory which has a ton of customers, a ton of listings, and a ton of travelers, and monetize that further by being able to become an online travel agent and charge a commission or a service fee on the transactions, the revenue that's happening. HomeAway was estimated to drive about $15 billion of booking revenue last year, and they got paid a fraction of that as far as their overall revenue. So that's what they're looking to do, is they're looking to find a way to monetize the incredible power of a $15 billion travel brand, or $15 billion worth of bookings that they're driving, and find ways to monetize that to be able to increase their revenue and increase the stickiness they have with their customers as well. So that's a lot of the reasoning behind this big push for everything to be 100% bookable online, because if it's not booked online, they can't earn that service fee or commission that they're trying to get with what they're doing from an overall booking perspective, and they can't successfully make that transition from a directory to an OTA or an online travel agency. And the battle that is happening here as this is all going on is that these directories who are becoming OTAs are trying to take control of the customer relationship. And that is such a huge takeaway from today's webinar. If you get nothing else, hear me when I say that the directories who are becoming the OTAs, or online travel agents, are trying to take control of the customer relationship. Whoever controls the customer relationship controls the flow of money, controls the industry. Because if we can control customers, if we can control consumers, and we can control their behavior and where the money goes, we control everything. If the consumer gets so used to doing business with an OTA that they stop doing business directly with you, they can charge you whatever percentage they want to charge from an overall service fee or commission or booking fee or whatever you want to call it. They can charge just about whatever they want because they become the puppet master. And we then as an industry are completely reliant on those third-party directories. And that's why it's so important, and we believe it's so important, and we preach it and we teach it in the webinars that we do, to have a strategy to be able to stay independent. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we kind of go throughout our time together here today, but really wanted to hit on that and make sure we were connecting on that. And this is a lot of why. This is a lot of the reason behind why they're forcing those online bookings. I went a little deeper into it, trying to explain those bottom slides that a few people weren't seeing. But they're really trying to make this happen. And what we want to see is the role that the directories play and the business that they bring us. That's great, but not let them get so much control over our business, so much control over our revenue that they become a bully. You know, we want to see them succeed. We want to, because they play a huge part. They grow the industry through advertising. They have bigger budgets than anybody else, so they can spend more money and they can drive growth. And that's awesome, and we appreciate the investment that they're making in doing that. But we don't want to lose control of our revenue. We don't want to lose control of our customers as an industry. And the biggest part of that is being able to have a process to drive marketing, drive traffic, drive prospective customers through our own channels. And that's what we're looking for. And if we don't, if we take that road and say, you know what, I'm just going to rely there, I'm going to be happy with what I'm getting, and I'm just going to put it on cruise control and not worry about it. If we fail to build our own marketing strategy, we lose control of our customers, we lose control of our brand, and we cease to be relevant to the consumer, and we become a commodity. If we become a commodity, we're the same as everybody else. Our properties are the same as everybody else's. Our rooms are the same as everybody else's. Everything's the same, so you can stay anywhere, and it doesn't really matter. We don't add any value. So we have to make sure that we are creating the relationship with the customer, adding value to them throughout their process, not just their stay, but throughout the entire vacation experience, throughout the 5 stages of travel, which if you've been with us before, you've heard me talk about the 5 stages of travel: dreaming, planning, booking, experiencing, remembering. But we have to make sure we're doing a great job of providing a great experience through those 5 stages of travel, adding value through those 5 stages of travel, and then building that trust and that relationship with the consumer, with the traveler, as a result of that. And if we don't, and I spoke about this just a second ago, but we become hostage to their changes, to their price increases, to demands that they make, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We absolutely just become a puppet and have to play ball with the rules that they create, as opposed to being able to say, you know what, that's enough. Like, you've pushed the envelope far enough. I'm going to go do my own thing. I don't need this part of my. I don't need your directory driving demand for me. I have enough demand coming from other sources. So it's so critical to be able to do that. Which leads us to that question of how do we reduce dependency on third-party booking sites and or directories, knowing that there is that kind of gray area between the two, as many of them are trying to make that transition into an OTA. But how do we reduce that dependency? You've heard us talk a little bit about marketing. One of the things we have created to do that is a path to regain the control of your customer and your brand. And it really comes down to a marketing problem, right? We have to create marketing and customer experiences that are memorable. And when we create these memorable experiences, it's our brands they remember, not the OTA brand. The OTA might be what got them there, or the directory might be what got them there. But if we do a great job delivering great marketing and a great customer experience that is memorable to the consumer, they will come back and they will book direct with us next time. And it will also enable us to grow the direct channel, or what you often hear referred to as brand.com. Brand.com is the direct channel of bookings that happens through your website or your domain, which is why they call it brand.com. I was on a webinar yesterday that TravelClick put on, one of the firms in the industry that has a lot of data about what's going on, and I was looking at trends and booking data and trying to understand what's going on, and preparing some thoughts and some strategies and other things for other reasons, which we may teach a webinar on some of those things we're working on another date. But one of the big things that jumped out at me, and this was a statistic from the bigger hotel sector, so it came from more of the flagged hotels and the chains and things like that. But the statistic was that only about 25% of national hotel chains get their business from brand.com. Fortunately, in the independent segment of the industry, we see that much higher, that a higher percentage of the businesses, the higher percent of the revenue of the businesses that we work with get it from their own website or their brand.com. But it's such an important goal to look at your overall revenue spread and track that quarter over quarter, year over year, and say what percentage of my revenue is coming from my brand, is coming from my website, as opposed to what percentage of my revenue comes from third-party directories or third-party booking sites. Because if that percentage is too high, and this is something that the hotels are starting to wake up to and realize, if that percentage is too high in one sector, it's too high from travel agents, it's too high from group bookings, it's too high from OTAs, it's too high from any one sector. If that sector pulls out and stops sending you business, or becomes so expensive to do business with, i.e. they raise their commission rates or what have you, that it's not profitable for you to do business anymore, you have to have a plan B. In reality, you need a plan A that's driving that demand back through your own brand.com, through your own website, and creating that channel for you. And as a part of that, creating this memorable marketing that will help you do that. So let's dive into that. Let's look at some ways that we have found and that we use for our customers to drive more direct bookings and reaching people who are looking to book accommodations, reaching travelers that are planning a trip to a specific destination and looking to book their accommodations. And as we do that, we're going to measure the traffic to your website as prospective customers, right? I mean, we're all used to talking about traffic. Hopefully you look at Google Analytics on a regular basis. But sometimes you get desensitized to the data that's in there. You get desensitized to the ups and the downs because you forget about the fact that traffic to your website is actually prospective customers. So go with me as we switch that language a little bit, that these are prospective customers. These are travelers that are planning a trip, that are considering coming to your destination, or why would they be on your website in the first place? So this isn't traffic. It's not some random number. These are prospective customers who are finding you or they're finding your competition, but either way, they're already planning a trip to your destination, so we know the intent to buy is there. We know the intent to purchase something is there. We know the intent to come to your destination is there. We have to help. You have to figure out how to get in the path of those travelers and create a strategy. And making this mind shift from traffic to prospective customers, I think will create a bigger sense of urgency as you say, how many prospective customers have found my property this month? How many prospective customers have found my business this month? And that creates a bigger sense of urgency than just looking at numbers in Google Analytics and saying, oh, traffic's up, traffic's down, no big deal, when in reality it is a big deal because those are the people finding you and ultimately having a chance to book with you. And as we look at that, we've developed our one-page marketing plan to help you have a plan to attract more prospective customers, right? I mean, that's the name of the game, creating a plan to do that. And while this webinar is not about the one-page plan, we teach that, and we'll probably be teaching that in coming weeks to be able to help you develop that plan and create some systems and processes around your marketing. And I'd be happy to email you a copy of that or notify you of what our next webinar is going to be, so you can email me. You all have my address, but you can email me if you'd like a copy of that one-page marketing plan. But that's a great tool to help you organize what we're going to be talking about over the rest of our time on the webinar today. So the one-page marketing plan will help you organize your execution of the marketing strategies we're going to be talking about together today. So as we do that, let's meet Brande. Brande was the marketing director of Seaside Vacations. She came to us about 4 years ago. In her literal words, on one of our first calls, she was a referral from another customer of ours. But one of the first things she said to me was, Matt, it keeps me awake at night knowing how much of my business is coming through third-party directories. She actually named some names I'm going to leave out for sake of that, but that's the conversation we had, was we have to have a strategy to drive more direct brand.com business. And this was 4 years ago. This wasn't after Expedia bought HomeAway. This wasn't after HomeAway bought so many other people. This was 4 years ago. So props to Brande for being very forward-thinking and seeing the writing on the wall that was coming, which we believe that writing on the wall is more clear now than ever. And we taught a lot about that in the Expedia buys HomeAway webinar. So if you didn't get a chance to see that, please do message us, and we'll be happy to get you a copy of that. But lots of things you can learn about where we think the future of that whole thing is going from that. But this was such an important conversation for Brande. And fast forward 4 years, we're still working with Seaside Vacations. Brande's not the marketing director anymore. She's moved on to some other things, but still working with them. We're going to tell you the story about some things that we've accomplished with them throughout our time together, with hopes that telling you Brande's story will trigger some ideas in your mind. Because what we want for you today is to generate some ideas, generate some aha moments that you can take and start applying into your marketing. We don't have time to dive super deep into each of these topics, so it's going to be somewhat surface level as we move through a lot of topics, but helping you develop the plan. And then there's lots of other webinars we do which dive deeper into specific topics that are elements of your plan, or dive deeper into the elements of your plan that will help you figure out how do you need to execute those things. So for example, email marketing, how do you need to do that really, really well? And we teach other webinars on that topic that you can definitely circle back to at future dates. But we're going to hit the highlights of this today. So email marketing happens to be the first thing, and if you've been with us before, you know we talk a lot about the power of email marketing. And there's so many misconceptions around email marketing. The number one misconception we hear is that my guests don't want more email, when in reality, your guests want to hear from you. If a guest told you they don't want more email, what they were actually saying is they don't want more crap that they get from their coworkers. They don't want more memes. They don't want more TPS report cover. We don't want more office space style emails saying that we're going to need you to stay over the weekend. We don't want more of that. The average American worker spends over 2 hours a day on their email and gets over 100 emails a day. So think about that. They're spending over 25% of their workday responding to email. It's an incredible medium as far as being able to get in the path of consumers and find them at that opportunity and give them a break from the routine of their day, right? They're spending 2 hours going through work email. Your email shows up. It should be a welcome break from the overall monotony of what's going on in the midst of their day. So a tremendous opportunity to really break that up and remind them of that great experience they had. There's those 5 stages of travel coming up again, right? Remind them of the experience they had staying at your property, how special that time was, and they get to take a break from their workday, sit there, look like they're doing work because they're at their computer checking their email. If their boss walks by, we got to pass, I'm doing my work, boss. But in reality, they're mentally checked out. They're remembering that experience they had, and they're dreaming about the next time they can escape to come stay with you again. They're remembering the memories and dreaming about future memories that will be made. So email is a tremendous opportunity to connect with your guests in that medium. The other big thing we want to hit on with email is it is a tremendous opportunity to make transactions or to book rooms. Because if you think about the people that are most likely to do business with you, it's people that have done business with you in the past. So go with me on this. If you had a database full of people that have done business with you in the past, they're your perfect customers. They know you, they like you, they've had great experiences, they've spent money with you in the past. That is the ideal group of people to do business with you. The good news is everybody has one. We all have a database of people that have done business with us in the past. We all have a database of ideal customers. The bad news is less than 5% of us, as I travel and I speak and I ask for a show of hands at conferences all over the country, less than 5% of people are doing email marketing on a regular, consistent basis, which is such a missed opportunity because you are sitting on a gold mine. You're sitting on a database of people that like you, they had a great experience with you, and they're likely to do business with you again, but you're not doing anything with them. So we tell customers you need to be sending, or we tell everybody, we do this for customers, but we tell everybody you need to be sending at least 2 email campaigns per month. And we can dive deeper on that on a future webinar on what those campaigns need to have and how to make them work and how to drive open rates and how to keep unsubscribe low while driving click-through and so many strategies that go into great email. And we'll teach that at a future date, but we just want you to get started. At the end of the day, if you're not doing it, if you're in that 95% of people that aren't doing this consistently, I'm not saying you're not doing it at all, but if you're not doing it at least twice a month, you're not doing it consistently, start doing it. You don't have to worry about the science behind it. Doing it is better than not doing it at all. Doing it mediocre is better than not doing it at all. So at least start doing it. And knowing that even if you consider it to be mediocre, that's better than nothing. And then as you do that, and you're trying to figure out, is this working, is it not, am I getting what I want out of this, expect to see about 8% of your database clicking through. So think about this, and this was Brande's case when we started. She had about 10,000 emails. 8% of her database meant that she was getting 800 visits a month from email marketing when we started working with her. And I tell you that statistic to say, think about your database, and if you're not doing email, that's what you're missing out on. You're missing out on 8% of your database coming to your website in any given month, which is a tremendous amount of traffic, a tremendous amount of business that you're probably missing out on right now that you could be getting. So make sure you have a strategy to invest in email marketing. It's going to be such an important part of the way you reduce your dependency on third-party distribution. And Brande wasn't not doing it at all when we started with her. She actually had about 80 visits a month from email marketing. So she was doing it pretty poor. I wouldn't even say that falls in the mediocre category, pretty poor. But we helped her in the first year grow that to 950 visits a month from email marketing. Tremendous growth from email marketing, tremendous success, almost 1,000 visits a month just coming from doing a couple of campaigns. And the good news is we have a strategy to grow that database as well, and over the years that database has grown significantly, and the traffic volume has gone up significantly as well. So that's the other big part of email, is making sure you have a strategy to grow your database. Let's touch base on social media for a moment. Of all the things we talk about, and as I travel around and I ask for a show of hands, social media is the one thing that almost everyone is doing at some level. When I say how many of you are engaged in doing social media on a regular basis, almost 100% of people in the room raise their hand. And I think that's because social media is the most natural thing to do. It's the easiest thing to do for most people because they're already on it. Most of us are already on it anyway, so it's not that big of a stretch to go ahead and post something, or it's not that big of a stretch to task that to somebody on our team perhaps. But in reality, social media has the lowest ROI of any marketing medium that we see, yet it's the area that the majority of people spend the most amount of time and money on. So if it has the lowest ROI, but we're spending the most amount of time and money on it as an industry, we have a problem. Flipping that equation, email marketing has the highest ROI of any marketing medium we see, yet people spend the least amount of time on email marketing. So we as a company believe if we all flip that ratio, if we take some of the time from social media and reassign that to email marketing, that alone can make a dramatic shift in the success that you're seeing in your own brand.com marketing strategy, or your ability to drive traffic, leads, and bookings through your own website. There's a couple other goals there that you need to set for yourself within social media or expectations, but make sure you're posting 3 to 5 times per week. If you have a page and it's linked from your website but you haven't posted to it in a year, unfortunately the first question is this company even still in business? That's the question that travelers will ask. If they go to your page and they see you haven't posted in a year, they're going to be like, are they even still operating? Like, who doesn't post to their Facebook page in over a year? But unfortunately, that's all too common. Or there's a huge amounts of, huge gaps of time between posting. So just a lot that's going on there that people just don't do it in the right way. So post 3 to 5 times per week, but don't spend an inordinate amount of time on it. Really focus it down on just a couple networks that you want to be managing and do a great job at those. Make sure that you have at least 1,000 fans on Facebook and that you have a plan to grow at 5 to 10% per month. The pages that have 1,000 or more fans tend to get a lot more traffic than those with less. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. There's nothing magic about the 1,000 mark, or we don't believe there is. There's a lot of other reasons behind that number, but set that as a goal for yourself. If you have less than that, you really need to set a goal to reach that. But no matter where you are, we encourage you to set a goal of growing at 5 to 10% per month. Whether you have 2,000 or 20,000 or 200, set a goal to grow at 5 to 10% per month. If you have 200, you might want to set a little bit more of a fixed number goal than a percentage goal, because a percentage of 200 could be pretty low. But it's somewhere to start, and get to that 1,000 mark as quick as you can, because you'll see as you get there that you'll have greater success going forward. But as you're thinking about your overall marketing mix, again, social media should be playing a smaller role in the overall mix than a larger one. When we started working with Brande, she had 297 fans on Facebook, and one of her big goals for us was to grow that following. And you can see that growth chart there as we grew her to over 11,000. This chart's actually a little out of date because I pulled it a little while ago. I believe it's over 15,000 now. But a tremendous opportunity to grow that, because that is the audience that you have the opportunity to reach. That's the audience you've earned the right to reach. Now, granted, the way Facebook is these days, you still have to pay to reach that audience, which is frustrating for a whole host of other reasons. But if you have a message you need to get out, if you have a last-minute cancellation, or you have a package or a special you want to promote, that is the audience that you can get that message out to. But you have to invest over a period of time in growing that audience, so when you get to the place where you need to get a message out, you have an audience to send it to. If you wait until you need to get a message out to try to build an audience, it's too late. You have to grow an audience over a period of time to be able to get your message out when it's the right time to get the message out. So that's why growing consistently is so important. And you can see that growth in this chart here is a relatively consistent growth. There's definitely some spikes in different places, but it's relatively consistent growth over the course of about 3 years. Awesome. So let's talk about search engine optimization. I believe personally that search engine optimization is one of the most misunderstood things in the overall marketing world. But it comes from, unfortunately, a lot of shady salespeople kind of selling a bill of goods. It comes from a lot of scare tactics from various people in the industry that try to scare people using Google and using SEO and this big scary thing. When in reality, it's not scary. You just have to play the game well. You have to have a strategy for it. But it's so important. We see about 40% of our customers' traffic to their websites coming from organic search, or Google, if you will. And if 40% of your traffic is coming from there, you can make the assumption that 40% of your direct bookings are also coming from there. So an area that has 40% of your overall business, you have to pay attention to. And while we don't use scare tactics as a company, and that's not part of our marketing strategy, that's the plain facts of it. About 40% of your traffic should be coming from there, and as such, you have to have an important part of your overall strategy to focus on what's going on. You need to know your high-value keywords and where you rank for those things. You need to be focused on that, but the days of saying, I'm targeting one keyword and that's what I want to go after are really over. Like, Google's gotten it advanced enough that you can't just target one particular keyword and say, that's my SEO strategy. When in reality, what you're working towards is a larger body of work, that you know there's a multitude of keywords you want to be ranking for. And through a great content strategy or content marketing strategy, you can do a body of work that will help you rank for more and more and more keywords. As we look at what we consider healthy websites, they're ranking for hundreds of keywords. Those might not all be primary keywords. They might not all be high-value keywords. You need to have a plan, and you need to track those as well. But you need to be expanding your horizon. You need to be expanding your view a little bit to say, I need to be going after more. Because when a customer or a traveler is searching for something in your destination, your content strategy or your blogging strategy needs to help you get found by that traveler. The way people discover destinations is very different today than it was 3 years ago or 5 years ago or even 18 months ago. The way they're discovering information like that isn't necessarily just by searching Charleston Vacation Rentals or Charleston Bed and Breakfast or Charleston Hotels, but they're looking for things to do. They're planning their trip around that, and they're looking for the sources of information that can help them find that information. That's one of the reasons TripAdvisor has grown into such a massive travel site, massive travel brand, because it does a tremendous job of helping consumers plan their trip, helping people do that whole planning stage really well, helps them succeed when they get to the booking stage. And they're one of those third-party directories that I'm talking about when I say they're making that shift to an OTA. They made it through the Trip Connect platform to try to find other ways to monetize it, and now being able to book direct on TripAdvisor is absolutely a play to become an OTA. And they're using that massive amount of traffic they have to generate revenue in so many different ways, from subscriptions to ad revenue with Trip Connect to the OTAs and commissions. There's so many ways that they monetize a massive amount of traffic that they have built. But they do content really well. They probably do content marketing better than just about any other travel brand out there. And it's the reason that they've been able to create such growth. So I'm not saying that, I know I got down this TripAdvisor road a little bit more than I intended to, but I'm not saying you need to do that or that needs to be your strategy, but you need to have a content strategy that produces fresh content on a regular basis to help you succeed in search engine optimization. To help you be able to say, I'm going to set a goal of growing organic traffic by 20% year over year, and I have a plan to achieve that. Because that is a direct indicator of the prospective travelers discovering your company through that. So it's a great thing to set your mind to. It's a great thing to invest into, and it's a great thing to do well. But as you're doing that, make sure you're partnering with somebody who really understands what they're doing, or you're creating the content in-house, or you're creating that yourself. But however you're going to go about doing that, make sure you have a strategy to do that, and you really understand what it takes to succeed from a content marketing perspective. And this goes hand in hand with blogging. Anyone who's talking about SEO and is not talking about blogging as a part of content marketing is living in an SEO world that existed about 5 years ago. They haven't kept up with the times of what's going on. Seth Godin actually recently said, I think it was about 2 years ago, but he said content marketing is the only marketing left. And what he meant by that, or what I believe he meant by that, is that consumers trust content marketing. They trust someone who's creating content to help them solve a problem. No matter what industry you're in, you're creating content to help them solve a problem, and by doing that, you win their trust and you win the ability to do business with them. And that's what your blog and your SEO strategy should be doing. They should be married together to create that content to help you get found by travelers, help them solve their problems, and by doing that, you will get the opportunity to do business with them. And this has been a really big focus for us. Brande had a lot of competition in a very competitive marketplace. And honestly, when she asked us to take on SEO for her, I said, that's great, and we'll do it, and we believe we can get you first page. I don't believe I can beat competitor X and competitor Y because I know what they're spending on AdWords, which leads me to believe I know what they're spending on their overall marketing, and I know they're just outspending us by about a 10-to-1 ratio. So don't expect to get ahead of them. Fast forward about 6 to 9 months into that relationship, and Brande was ahead of competitor X and competitor Y, and seeing tremendous growth from her SEO and organic strategy, tremendous growth in bookings coming from organic search. And the reason that we think that happened, or the reason we know that happened, is because not only were we doing SEO well and the things it takes to succeed there, but we were doing content marketing really, really well for her, and we were really, really focused on that before a time that other people were really thinking about it. And even though we've been doing that for 4 years now, her competitors still have not caught up. Her competitors are still not investing into content marketing the way that they are, and as such, we've been able to stay ahead of our competition year after year after year over the last 4 years and take a tremendous amount of revenue, most likely from competitors, because it's coming to us now as opposed to when it was going to them before because they were outranking her. And we know whoever ranks highest is going to get the most traffic. So it's a huge opportunity to get traffic and get bookings and get ahead of your overall competitive set in your marketplace. One of the other things we look at and talk a lot about is the process of lead generation. And as we drive all of this traffic, you have a choice. If you want to double leads or you want to double business, you can double traffic, and that's fine, and that's great. It's very hard to do, but you could do it and invest into that. Or you could double your conversion ratio. So if 1% of people who come to your website convert into a lead or a booking, you could invest in conversion rate optimization and lead generation to impact the percentage of people that convert. So go with me on this. If we double our traffic and our conversion rate stays the same at 1%, we've doubled the number of leads or bookings that we've brought in. If our traffic stays the same, but we double our conversion ratio from 1% to 2%, we've accomplished the same thing. We've doubled the amount of business that we have. So it's a tremendous opportunity to increase conversion ratio on your website. Yet it's something that a lot of people in our industry are not talking about on a regular basis. As a company, we believe both are important. We believe you need to increase traffic and invest into your brand.com and marketing to be able to reduce dependency on third-party distribution. But as part of that, because what many people rely on third-party for is the actual leads coming through. So being able to invest in a lead conversion strategy and a way to convert the anonymous traffic to your website into people who actually have a name and an email address and a phone number, and you know things about them, right, because they fill out a form and they convert as a lead in exchange for something of value. Now you have people you can call on. Now you have people. Now you're growing your database. Now you have leads that you can convert into bookings, whereas before you had anonymous people come into your website and you had no idea who they were. So as you're thinking about how to reduce dependency on third-party distribution, driving traffic is going to be critically important, and we've talked about a lot of strategies to do that. But you also need to make sure you're thinking about how do we create more leads and generate more booking inquiries, because that's the next step in the process. And as we look at that, as we fast forward to some of Brande's results last year, so in Brande's third year with us, she generated over 18,000 total leads. 6,000 of those were unique or new leads, which means 12,000 people roughly either reconverted from a previous year, so a past guest that reconverted, or was a lead that converted multiple times, which is also very, very good, because a lead converting multiple times means that they are more likely to do business with us because they've had multiple points of conversion. I know I'm getting a little technical there, but really, really important part of the overall strategy and process is the reconversion piece. That led to over 1,500 bookings and $2.25 million in booking revenue. And as you can imagine, the ROI on that was off the charts for them, and it drastically reduced their dependency on third-party distribution. She was actually able to pay for her entire marketing strategy just in the cost reduction of her third-party distribution expense. So that extra revenue she generated was just icing on the cake. Big, thick icing on the cake. But she paid for her whole marketing plan, her whole brand.com integrated marketing plan, just out of reducing spend on third-party distribution. Didn't happen overnight. Took some time. Took about 2 years, actually, before we got to that point. But the combination of those things drove ROI really, really high for her. We didn't talk about blogging. That was one of the things I left off just for the sake of time, and I talked about it quite a bit on the SEO slide. But that's such a key piece. And if you wanted to get a lot of information about that, I just want to touch on it a little bit because I have a few more minutes than I thought I would have at this point. But make sure that your content strategy is targeted around keywords people are searching for when they're planning a trip to your area. So not things like Charleston Vacation Rentals or Charleston Bed and Breakfast or Charleston Hotel. Those things are high-value keywords. That's awesome. That's part of your SEO strategy. But things like, what's the best place to get seafood in Charleston? That's a blog you need to be writing, assuming you're in Charleston. What are Charleston's top 3 beaches? That's a blog you need to be writing. Where's the best place to go on a carriage tour? What's the deal with Rainbow Row? Like all these things about Charleston that you need to be creating content, because when tourists are planning a trip to Charleston, they're searching those things. They're the questions that they used to ask travel agents that they're now asking Google. And I know it's hard to think about some of those things. I know there's kind of writer's block as you're trying to brainstorm what these things are, but there's a lot of great tools to help you do that. But one of the quickest, dirtiest, easiest ways to do that is just to train your staff. Anytime a guest asks a question, or anytime someone calls and asks a question, or anytime somebody has to check in a question, or during their stay they ask a question, write down the question. Because if your guests are asking you or your staff those questions, I guarantee you 100 to 1 people are asking Google those questions. So every question a guest asks that's relevant to your area and not like, hey, where's the towels for the pool? Every question a guest asks that's relevant to your area is a blog topic for you. And if they're asking that of you, 100 to 1 or more are asking that of Google when they're planning a trip to your area. And when they're planning a trip to your area, they ask Google that question, and you have the answer, and they find your blog as a result. They have discovered your brand. They have discovered your brand.com, your website. Now they know you exist. Now there's an opportunity for them to do business with you, whereas before they might not have ever known you existed. Or before they might have just gone to an OTA and made a booking that way, an online travel agent, or they might have gone to a distribution site. This is one of the big steps in helping you break that dependency on third-party distribution, or reduce that dependency on third-party distribution. And this webinar is not we want to do away with third-party sites. That's not at all. They, as I said at the beginning, they play such an important role in our industry and help us grow the overall industry. But we don't want you to be captive to them as an independent lodging company, right? Because that puts you in a really difficult spot. It makes you a commodity. It makes your brand cease to have value, and it makes the consumer and the customer relationship start belonging to the distribution site or the OTA or whoever. And whoever controls that customer relationship controls the game. Whoever controls the customer relationship controls the flow of money and can charge whatever they want to whoever's downwind of that, who's trying to make money and grow their business as a part of that. So lots of things, we kind of recap there and touch on a few of those that are a really important thing to think about to your overall success. So how do you get started, right? I know we've kind of thrown a ton of ideas at you. Hopefully you've been jotting down notes. Hopefully you're thinking about watching the recording and going back to that to really refresh your memory on some key points. Maybe you were distracted or a guest walk in. I know that happens all the time. But how do you get started? If you've been with us in the past, you know we love to end every webinar or every speaking engagement we do with the idea of taking a next step, because coming to webinars is awesome, but if you don't take a next step, you've kind of wasted your time. And that's not what we want for you. We want you to take a next step and be able to start the process of planning your marketing. And as we do that, we believe the first step in planning your marketing is to understand, how is my marketing performing right now? How is my brand.com marketing performing right now? How am I doing in these areas that we talked about today? What's my distribution strategy look like? How's my email marketing look? How's my SEO look? How's my blogging performing for me? And to help you understand those things, we've developed a free marketing grader. It's kind of a combination of software we use to produce a score, as well as our own eyeballs we have in our thought process from doing this for, we've probably done 1,000 marketing graders at this point, so we have a tremendous amount of data on what's going on in the industry and what's working and what's not. So you can request a free marketing grader. We'll give you a score 0 out of 100, so you know exactly how your marketing is performing. We'll help you understand where that score compares to the industry as a whole. And I think the most valuable part of the whole thing, besides just if you're interested in where you score, that's great too, but the most valuable part of the whole thing is we will give you action items, and we'll say, you scored X, let's say it's a 60, but here's 5 things you need to do in your search engine optimization strategy to get your strategy on track. Here's 3 things, 3 ideas for you in social media that will help you get your social media strategy where it needs to be. Here's 2 ideas for email marketing to help you improve that. And those action items are the items that if you start implementing them, you will drive more traffic, you will drive more prospective customers to your website, you'll drive more bookings, more revenue, and as a result, your marketing grader score would be high. So I know many of you have probably requested this from us in the past. You can always request it again, and we'll give you an updated score based on what we're seeing. Or if this is your first time with us, happy to make that available to you as well. So we like to do that through polls now, just to make it easier on everybody. So I'm going to launch this poll real quick. Click the wrong button there. We're going to launch this poll for you so you can respond to that. Give you a few minutes to do that. There should be a poll popping up on your screen. And the question is, would you like the marketing grader? Say yes. Would you not like the marketing grader? Say no. Or would you like to know how we can help you? How we can help you from an overall marketing perspective. We get a lot of people asking that in the comment sections afterwards, so we just added it to this poll to make it easier for people. So that's really, if you're, hey, this sounds awesome, Matt. How do we skip to the part where we figure out what it looks like to work together? We're happy to help you with that as well. Just check that. I'd like to know how Q4 Launch can help. Check that box and we'll get that going for you. But again, if you want that marketing grader to figure out your action steps, figure out your score, figure out what next steps you need to take to start improving your marketing and reducing your dependency on third-party distribution today, this would be the questions to answer. Yes, I want the marketing grader to take a next step. We'll follow up with you, get you that information. No, I'm good. Don't need it. Got it. Good to go. Awesome. Or that last question, I'd like to know how Q4 Launch can help me get started. So check the appropriate box. We've had about 50% of people vote. So if you haven't voted, just go ahead and put a vote. Doesn't matter what it is, but just fill in one of those for us so we can keep things moving along here. That would be awesome. Give you about 5 more seconds to put in your answer, and then we will get to our Q&A. So if you haven't had a chance, go ahead and put your question in the Q&A as well. Be happy to answer any questions that you have and go over everything we talked about today. We've got about 15 minutes left for question and answer. So happy to answer some of those questions due to the chat panel, and we will get those questions answered. Awesome. We're going to go ahead and close that poll now. Perfect. And let's switch over here to Q&A. So go ahead and drop your questions in the chat panel, and I will do my best to get as many of these answered as we can today. Also, if you have a question you don't want to ask in the chat panel, I won't read out your name and embarrass you for asking a question. But if you have a question you don't want to put in there, my contact information is on the screen. I'm always happy to connect with you one-on-one after the webinar as well and answer any questions that I can. Or if there's anything else we can do to help. If you want us to come give this presentation at a conference, or you want an updated picture of my baby girl because you've been on webinars where I've shared those before, whatever it is, that's kind of creepy. My wife would be mad if she knew I said that on a webinar to a bunch of random people, but but I know you've heard me talk about her in the past if you've been with us before. But my contact information is there on the screen. Awesome. Let's dive in here. Let's answer some of these questions. First question we had is, you talked about keyword research. What is a good way of being able to do that? Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you for that question. I did see just that message from somebody that can't see my screen, so we'll get that put back up. Not sure what happened there, but thanks for letting me know that. So we've got the contact information on the screen there, as well as the Q&A. So back to that question about how to do keyword research. I talked about that quick, dirty way of doing it, of just writing down all the questions your guests ask. That's the #1 go-to. That's the least technical, easiest way to do that. Other than that, what we typically recommend is using the Google Keyword Planner tool. Inside of Google AdWords, which you have to have an AdWords account, but it's free to create. You don't have to spend money on AdWords. Inside of the AdWords Planner, inside of AdWords is the Google Keyword Planner tool, which is meant to help you do research for AdWords, but it can also help you do research for what people are searching for. So interestingly enough, this month they've actually changed that tool. It used to show you keywords, or you could search keywords, and it would show you estimated search volume, and it would show you every month out of the year how much search volume there was for that keyword. They have changed that. They're actually giving us less information. Across our staff, about half of our staff's accounts have been upgraded, quote unquote, which in reality is kind of a downgrade, and they're not giving in that information anymore, so that's a bummer. And about half of our team still has an account where they can access that. So we don't know what the difference is, why they've transitioned some and not others, but that's a great way to do that. It may be a little different than what you're seeing there or what you see when you go in. But that's a great way to do it. You can also start typing a search, and you can see the way Google completes your search. That will help you be able to figure out what does Google think you're trying to search for, because if they think you're trying to search for something, chances are they have information that says other people search that. So that's kind of not as scientific of a way of doing it, and it's kind of a pain to do it that way. But that's a quick way of doing it. Another way of doing it is just look at all of the tour operators or attractions in your town, create a list of those, and think about if someone was looking for that, what would they be searching? What's the best place to go zip lining? What's the best whitewater kayaking? Where's the best lobster roll? Where's the best sushi? What's the best Italian food? All these things. What are kid-friendly activities to do? What's the best thing to do on a rainy day? All these different things people could be searching for. And you can look at different activities and tour operators to figure out what some of those things might be as well. So kind of a long-winded answer there, but lots of ways to do keyword research. Question here from Charles. What should be our goal OTA booking rate? We get that question every time we do a webinar on OTAs, or even remotely related to that. And honestly, Charles, there isn't a goal. It's really specific by market and by who your target is. So I shared that about 25% of bookings were coming through Brande.com from that webinar I did yesterday with TravelClick. And I'm remembering these off the top of my head because I didn't write these ones down, but I believe about 30% were coming through OTA and GDS, those two sources combined. So you could look at the overall hotel mix, gets about 30% of their business there. I would say your goal would be to be less than that number, because those are big flag chain hotels. As independent sector, we will probably want to be less than that number. The other thing you need to be thinking about is if you're in an urban market, it's probably going to be a little bit higher than average. If you're in a more remote market or a not as known of a market, maybe I should say, even if it's not urban, but it's a known market that a lot of people are searching for, it'll probably be higher. If you're in a less of a known city or less of a known destination, it will probably be lower or should be lower because you have to do a different type of marketing to reach people if your destination is not as known. It's actually a lot more work to market a destination that, or a property in a destination that's not known than it is to market one in a known destination. So a couple things to think about. There you go. The hotels are, around that 30% mark. If you look at OTA and GDS, as independent, we want to be lower than that in general. And then if you're in an urban or a well-known destination, that might skew you a little higher. If you're in a remote or less known destination, it might skew you a little bit lower. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Question here from Ed. If I post a link to kayaking on Pittsburgh rivers and some ask Google about kayaking on Pittsburgh rivers, will my blog Facebook post come up? Well, I would separate those two things out, your blog / Facebook post, right? I mean, those are very different things. That's the idea, right, is that if you are writing a blog on kayaking on Pittsburgh rivers, that your blog is what you want to come up. And if you've written that well and you've optimized that well and you've done that just how you're supposed to do that, it will come up. That's what you're doing with a content marketing strategy. Less likely that your Facebook post would come up, but you want your blog to come up. And that's something we really, really study closely. We write about 500 blogs a month, as a company, and we analyze the performance of those blogs to be able to see what's helping blogs rank, and then we use that information to help us do a better job of being able to write future blogs. So you can't just write a blog, you actually have to kind of know the process. I mean, writing it in the first place is going to be a good start, but you have to watch what's working and what's not, and then massage your process going forward. So we've internally have developed an 11-step process. We know if we follow these 11 steps, our blogs are more likely to get ranked. But it takes a lot of learning to figure out what those 11 steps are, and then it's a constant learning process to be able to keep up with Google as they're changing their algorithm and changing what they're working on. So hopefully that answers your question, Ed. You're on the right track. That if you write the blog, it will get ranked, or at least that's the idea. That's the goal, is to get that ranked. Awesome. Well, that's all the questions we had in the chat panel. Just 3 questions today, so that's not a ton. So hopefully that's good, that everybody got the information they were looking for. If you have any other questions, happy to hang out here just a minute. You can put those in the chat panel. Asking a question help. It's always beneficial for everybody because everybody learns a little bit more. If we don't have any more questions, definitely stay tuned. We'll be doing some future webinars coming up in a couple weeks. The conference season's kicking off, so I look forward to seeing many of you at the various conferences, and we'd love for you to come up and introduce yourself and say hi and everything else. But yeah, thank you for coming. We look forward to having you on a future webinar. I had just a question pop up here from Lisa. Just signed up for your email, but the confirm email did not come through. Thanks, Lisa. I will check on that for you, and we will make sure that you are getting our emails. So thank you for that. If anybody else is looking for that, you can sign up to receive our emails on our website, and we'll make sure you get our newsletter. We only send newsletters out to kind of a select group of people that request them. So if you want our newsletter, please do request that, and we will make sure to get that to you. And we'll make sure, Lisa, that you have that. Thanks, everybody, again. Hope you had a great time today. I really enjoyed diving into this topic with you, and we will look forward to seeing you soon on a future webinar.